Fact and Fiction, late 15th to 16th century extant miners' garments versus pictorial sources, by Beatrix Nutz. In this presentation, we are going to take a look at visual records of late medieval and early modern age mining activities and compare the miners' garments depicted there to extant finds of the same period from mining areas in Austria. Do the images depict reality, or have the artists sometimes given free rein to their imagination? Let's start with the pictorial sources. These are the sources we will look at: South Tyrolean altar pieces and church windows of 1480 to 1520, the Kutná Hora Gradual of 1490, the Miners' Altar in St. Anne of 1522, Agricola's metallica, and 3 editions of the Miners' Book of Schwaz of 1554 to 1556. So let's look at the poor, hard-working miners, in some sources basically wearing rags. And sometimes not even wearing hose or shoes. Images like that can lead to misconceptions. This is a poster done by an archaeologist who does not specialize in textiles. I guess she didn't know that 15th to 16th century hose tended to be footed in the manner of modern tights. Therefore, she concluded that hose only reached down as far as the ankles. Here you can see some images of hats, caps, and hoods. Images depend on the skills, level of knowledge, intentions, and possible preferences of the artist and the attention given to detail. Here the same book illustration, done by different artists in different editions of the same book, may lead the viewer to erroneous conclusions about the miner's clothing, depending on which image he or she looks at. Therefore, it is advisable to look at each illustration critically. This image raises doubts about its accuracy. It is not very credible that miners knelt with bare knees on hard, cold rock, regardless of whether their hose were torn at the knees or not, and not used knee pads or even simple rags tied around the knees for protection. No protective gear is to be found in South Tyrolean images either, but in the case of the stained glass window, the material could be to blame. Depicting knee pads here might be complicated and therefore not worthwhile. However, other sources show that knee pads were definitely in use. So why would some miners not have protected their knees, or not mended their clothes? Not related to mining, but to interpreting book illustrations in general. Sometimes it's all about context. This man is sometimes believed to be a tailor, but the accompanying text tells us it's a Kirschner, a furrier. Sometimes people believe this book illustration shows a medieval woman wearing underpants, but it is a man disguising himself as a woman. The fact that he is wearing underpants proves that he is, indeed, male. Intermediate conclusion. Not a single knee pad is depicted in any of the editions of the Miner's Book of Schwaz. Damaged garments can mainly be found in Codex Dip 856. No repair patches are shown in any of the pictorial sources. And now let's take a look at some extant textiles and mending. The extant garments were found at 4 high alpine copper and gold mining sites in East Tyrol, Carinthia and Salzburg, all Austria. Just to give you an idea, all sites are situated above an altitude of 2,300 meters above sea level, and the textiles were mainly preserved due to being covered by ice and snow. The majority of textiles are made of wool. Textiles made of plant fibers are rarely preserved, and if they are extremely fragile and brittle. This is probably due to soil conditions. Here you see fragments of 2 wool shirts with pleated necklines. Remember what I said earlier about mending? Here's the first repair patch. Some miners did mend their clothes. The repair patch is located on the shoulder, where the fabric is probably most stressed by the carrying strap of a backpack. Sixteenth-century hose had separated into 2 garments, upper hose or breeches and nether hose or stockings. These 3 fragments of upper hose and stockings of black broadcloth show no traces of mending. This, and the black color, could mean that they belonged to someone of higher rank. Mining masters and mining judges, the highest officials of a mining district, wore the black Spanish court costume, which had become established for all court officials around 1550. 2 slits in the fabric of the hose show where a sole would have been attached to make a footed hose or stocking. On the right, a sole of brown wool from another hose or stocking. This hose fragment, of course natural brown wool, has been mended repeatedly. Due to the tiny holes caused by the sewing needle and thread, and what's left of the linen sewing thread, and the discoloration of the fabric where it was covered with patches, at least 5 to 6 repair patches can be reconstructed. Numerous block-lifted textile fragments that were thankfully pieced together by Jane Malcolm Davis and Nina Michaela of the Tudor tailor turned out to be parts of a hose too. Each leg is sewn together from several pieces. The pieces, some of them had been sewn together selvage to selvage, have come apart due to the decay of the linen sewing thread. As can be seen from the gradient of the selvage, these hose were also cut on the bias. Comparisons with other extant hose and patterns from tailors' books show that this type of piecing was common. Here too, the tiny holes created by sewing needle and thread show that the hose was once mended several times. In the case of the blue lining, even a patch belonging to the hole was found, and traces of the linen sewing thread are still preserved. Protective knee pads. The use of some semicircular pieces of felt was puzzling at first. But the shape and size suggested knee pads. A comparison with the shape of modern knee pads confirmed this. So knee pads were known and used in Austria, and there's no reason to believe that Tyrolean miners would not have used them too. A short look at shoes, caps and hats. Well, this is to barefooted miners. Quite a lot of shoes and shoe soles were found. And knitted caps, some even with repairs. and felted hats and caps. But where are the hoods and hooded shirts? To date there are no extant finds of hoods or hooded shirts, maybe because they were made of linen, which does not seem to preserve well. Conclusion. This may be a truism, but don't take an illustration or painting at face value. Note the level of detail in an image. Consider the artist's skills, level of knowledge, intentions, and possible preferences. For book illustrations, also consider the context. And now, since we've still got a couple of minutes, a short video showing the recovery of some of the finds at an altitude of 2,942 meters above sea level.
Die Klimaerwärmung der letzten Jahre hat uns hier einen wahren Schatz beschert. Mittelalterliche Kleidungsstücke, die um 1450 bis 1550 datiert wurden, die in dieser Detailgenauigkeit natürlich nirgends erhalten werden, weil an der Oberfläche verwittert so ein Material natürlich in kürzester Zeit. Eine Überraschung waren zum Beispiel diese kleinen zierlichen Schuhe, mit denen scheinbar die Bergleute in den Stollen gearbeitet haben. Es waren keine genagelten Schuhe. Es könnten natürlich auch teilweise Kinderschuhe gewesen sein, nachdem ja bekannt ist, dass manchmal ein Drittel der Belegschaft im Bergwerk Kinder gewesen sind.
I hope you enjoyed the show. I'm done.